The next morning, Minho walked back into the Grand Assembly Hall. His steps echoed in the vast space. Inha and Yuna followed behind him, both carrying metal cases. The alien delegates sat in their same seats, looking smug and satisfied. Thek stood up as the humans approached. "Ambassador Minho, we trust your leaders have seen wisdom in our offer. The Council waits to welcome humanity into our civilized galaxy." Minho stopped in the center of the hall. He looked around at all the alien faces. Some looked bored, as if this was just another routine surrender. Others looked amused, like they were watching a funny show. "Honored Council," Minho said in a clear, loud voice, "I bring Earth's official response to your terms." "Excellent," Thek said. His forearms moved in what looked like a happy gesture. "Speak your acceptance, and we can begin the process of bringing human colonies under proper supervision." Minho pulled out a small device and activated it. His voice was amplified so every being in the hall could hear him clearly. "The people of Earth have considered your demands carefully. We have discussed them with our leaders, our scientists, and our military commanders. After full consideration, Earth's response is simple: no." The word hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. For several seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. Even the air recycling system seemed to get quieter. Thek's forearms stopped moving. "I do not understand this word in this context. Please clarify." "We reject your terms entirely," Minho said. "We will not abandon our colonies. We will not submit to Council oversight. We will not pay tribute. We came here seeking partnership and mutual respect. Since you offer only domination and submission, these talks are concluded." The explosion of sound was immediate. Every alien in the hall started talking at once. Some shouted in anger. Others clicked or buzzed or made sounds humans had no words for. Thek raised all four arms and the noise slowly died down. "You cannot refuse the Council," Thek said. His voice sounded strange, like he was trying to explain something impossible. "No species refuses the Council." "We just did," Inha said. Grick stood up so fast his chair fell over backward. "You primitive fools! Do you have any idea what you have just done? Do you know what our fleets will do to your pathetic colonies?" Yuna opened her metal case and pulled out a small projector. She activated it and a three-dimensional image appeared in the air above the humans. It showed a detailed map of Council space, with every planet, every space station, every patrol route marked in glowing lines. "We know exactly what your fleets will do," Yuna said calmly. "We know where your ships are right now. We know how many crew members each ship carries. We know what weapons they have and how much ammunition they carry." The hall went silent again. This time the silence felt different. It felt dangerous. The hologram changed, showing detailed pictures of Council warships. Technical specifications appeared next to each image: shield frequencies, weapon ranges, engine capabilities, crew quarters, life support systems. "We know that Varani ships have weak points in their rear shield generators," Yuna continued. "We know that Horthak vessels rely on central computer systems that can be disrupted with the right electromagnetic pulse. We know that Zentari fighters cannot operate effectively in asteroid fields because their sensors get confused." More images appeared. Battle plans, supply depot locations, communication encryption keys, even personal information about Council military commanders. "We have been watching you while you watched us," Minho said. "Every time you sent a scout ship to human space, we learned something new about your technology. Every diplomatic meeting gave us more information. Every Council broadcast we intercepted taught us more about your weaknesses." Thek sank back into his chair. "This is impossible. Our security is perfect. Our systems are impenetrable." "Your security is 10,000 years old," Inha said. "You have been the top predators for so long that you forgot how to watch for hunters. You assumed we were just another prey species. Grateful for your attention." An alien that looked like a giant fish spoke up. "Even if you have our technical specifications, what does it matter? You have a few dozen ships, we have thousands." Yuna smiled. It was not a nice smile. "You have thousands of ships, but they are spread across the entire galaxy. Most of them are patrol vessels designed to intimidate civilians, not fight wars. Your actual military strength is much smaller than you pretend. The hologram changed again, showing the real deployment of Council forces. Red dots marked their actual combat-ready vessels. Yellow dots showed ships that were mostly for show. Green dots marked supply bases and repair facilities. You have been running a protection racket, not an empire, Minho said. You scare new species with stories about your mighty fleets, but most of those fleets exist only in propaganda broadcasts. Grix made a sound like grinding metal. It does not matter what you know. When our ships arrive at your colonies, your people will die. When we blockade your homeworld, your children will starve. Will they? Inha asked. She opened her metal case and pulled out another device. This one showed images from human colonies. The images showed busy construction sites, defensive platforms being built in orbit, weapons factories working around. The clock. Military training centers where civilians learn to fight. While you were giving us ultimatums, our colonies were preparing for war, Inha said. Every human settlement now has planetary shields, orbital defense platforms, and enough supplies to last for years under siege. This is impossible, Thek shouted. Your species has been in space for less than a century. You cannot have this level of technology. You are right, Minho said. We could not have built these defenses with human technology alone. Fortunately, we did not have to. The hologram changed one more time. It showed human engineers working alongside aliens, not council species but others, races that had been conquered long ago and forced to serve the council. It turns out that many species in this galaxy do not love the council as much as you think they do, Yuna said. When we offered them a chance to strike back at their oppressors, they were very willing to help. They shared technology, provided materials, and offered technical assistance. The Krill helped us build our shield generators, Inha added. The Torvak taught us how to manufacture plasma weapons. The Nethys showed us how to hide our communications from council sensors. Thek stood up again. All four of his arms were shaking. Those species are under council protection. They are loyal citizens. They are slaves who hate their masters, Minho said, just like we would have become if we had accepted your terms. Grix pointed at the humans with one metal finger. You think you are clever, but you have made the worst mistake in your species' history. When the council fleets finish with your colonies, we will come for Earth itself. Your world will burn from pole to pole. Minho, Inha, and Yuna began packing up their equipment. The hologram disappeared. The devices went back into their cases. You can try, Minho said. But remember what we just showed you. We know where your ships are, how they fight, and how to beat them. More importantly, we know something about humans that you do not. What is that? Thek asked. Minho looked directly at him. We do not surrender, ever. When you attack our colonies, we will fight back. When you threaten our families, we will make you pay for it. When you try to make us slaves, we will show you what happens to bullies who pick on the wrong species. The three humans walked toward the exit. Council guards moved to block their path, but Thek waved them aside. This is not over, Grix shouted. After them. Minho stopped at the doorway and looked back. You are absolutely right. This is just the beginning. As they walked back to their ship, Yuna looked at her companions. Do you think they believed us about the defensive preparations? They believed enough, Inha said. The question is whether they are smart enough to back down or stupid enough to call our bluff. It is not entirely a bluff, Minho said. Our colonies are better defended than they know, just not as well as we made it sound. Will that be enough? Yuna asked. Minho thought about President Daiho's final instructions, about the real preparations that had been made, about the weapons that had been built and the plans that had been laid. It will have to be, he said. Minho walked through the massive doors of the Grand Assembly Hall. The building was bigger than anything on Earth. The ceiling went up so high that clouds formed inside. Golden walls stretched in every direction. Alien symbols covered every surface, glowing with soft blue light. He wore his best black suit, the one Earth's leaders had chosen for this meeting. Behind him walked Inha, a woman with sharp eyes who knew everything about war. Next to her came Yuna, young but smart, carrying a bag full of Earth's most important documents. The three humans looked tiny in the huge space. Around them sat 12 different alien species. Some had scales that changed colors, others had tentacles instead of arms. A few looked like walking rocks. All of them stared at the humans like they were looking at pets. At the front of the room sat Thek, the council speaker. He belonged to the Varani, a race that looked like tall gray people with 4 arms and no hair. His voice echoed when he spoke, making every word sound important. "Humans of Earth," Thek said, "you stand before the Galactic Council. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We decide who gets to travel between stars. We decide who gets to build new homes on other worlds." Minho nodded politely. "We thank the Council for this meeting. Earth hopes to work together with all species for peace and progress." Several aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. One creature that looked like a giant insect clicked its mandibles. Another alien with too many eyes rolled all of them at once. Thek raised one of his 4 hands. The laughter stopped. "You speak of working together, human, but you have broken our laws. You have built colonies in spaces that belong to the Council. You have taken resources that are not yours." "We built our colonies in empty space," Inha said. Her voice was calm but firm. No one lived on those worlds. No one was using those resources. Silence. The shout came from Grix, a creature that looked like a walking tank with arms. He commanded the Council's military forces. "You speak when we tell you to speak, Primitive." Yuna stepped forward. "With respect, Commander Grix, we are not primitives. We reached the stars on our own. We built our ships with our own hands. We learned to travel faster than light without anyone's help." "Lucky accidents," said another alien. "Your species got lucky. That does not make you equal to us." Thek stood up. All 4 of his arms moved as he talked. "The Council has decided what must happen. Humans will follow these rules or face our justice." He pressed a button on his chair. A huge screen appeared in the air above their heads. Words appeared on it, in human language. "First," Thek read, "all human colonies outside the Sol system must be abandoned. Your people will return to Earth and Mars. Second, the Council will oversee all future human expansion. You will ask our permission before building anything new. Third, Earth will provide 40% of all resources to the Council as membership dues." The hall went quiet. Minho looked at the screen, then at his companions. Inha's jaw was tight. Yuna's hands had formed fists. "These terms are—" Minho started. "Not open for discussion," Thek interrupted. "The Council has spoken. You will accept these terms, or your species will learn what happens to those who refuse us." Grick stood up. His metal feet made loud sounds on the floor. 12 species follow the Council's wisdom. All of them tried to refuse at first. All of them learned better. Some learned the easy way. Others learned the hard way. "What happened to those who learned the hard way?" Yuna asked. "Their worlds burned," another alien said. "Their cities became dust. Their children learned to obey where their parents would not." Minho felt something cold in his stomach. These aliens were not just arrogant. They were bullies who had spent thousands of years beating down anyone who stood up to them. "We need time to think about this," Minho said. More alien laughter filled the hall. Thek's 4 arms moved in what might have been a shrug. "Of course you do. All species ask for time when they first hear the truth. We will give you 1 day to accept our wisdom. Tomorrow you will return and tell us you agree to our terms." "And if we don't agree?" Inha asked. The laughter stopped. Every alien in the room looked at her with expressions that ranged from surprise to anger. "No species has ever refused the Council's final offer," Thek said. "You will not be the first." "But if we did refuse?" Yuna pressed. Grick stepped forward. "Then your colonies would be destroyed. Your ships would be captured. Your homeworld would be blockaded until your people ate their shoes to survive. Eventually, you would beg us to accept the same terms we offer you today." "That sounds like a threat," Minho said. It is not a threat, Thek replied. It is a promise. The galaxy belongs to those who are strong enough to take it and wise enough to keep it. Humans are neither strong nor wise. You are children playing with toys you do not understand. Minho stood up straighter. We understand more than you think. You understand nothing. The shout came from an alien that looked like a walking tree. Your species has existed for the blink of an eye. We have watched stars be born and die. We have seen empires rise and fall. You are nothing. We are something enough for you to bring us here, Inha said quietly. The hall went silent again. Several aliens looked uncomfortable. Thek sat back down. You are here because the Council is merciful. We could have simply destroyed your colonies without warning. We could have conquered Earth without speaking to you first. Instead, we offer you a chance to join us peacefully. How generous, Yuna said. Her voice was flat. It is generous. Grix slammed one of his metal fists on his chair. Species have waited centuries for the chance to serve the Council. You get that chance in your first 100 years of space travel. You should be grateful. Minho looked around the room. Every alien face showed the same expression. Absolute certainty that humans would give up without a fight. They had done this before many times. They expected it to go the same way it always went. We need to contact Earth, Minho said. Our leaders must hear these terms from us. Very well, Tech said. You may send your message, but remember, the answer we expect is yes. The answer we will accept is yes. Any other answer will bring consequences your species cannot imagine. Minho, Inha, and Yuna walked out of the great hall. Guards followed them to make sure they went directly to their ship. The aliens wanted to show respect for diplomatic rules, but they also wanted to make sure the humans did not see anything they should not see. On their ship, Minho sat down heavily in his chair. Well, he said, that went about as badly as we expected. Worse, Inha said. They're not just demanding tribute, they want to make us slaves. Slaves who pay for the privilege, Yuna added. Minho activated the communication system. Earth Control, this is Ambassador Minho. I need to speak with President Deho immediately. Tell him the Council has made their final offer. The communication system crackled. Copy that, Ambassador. The President is waiting for your call. As the connection established, Minho wondered what Deho would say. The aliens expected humans to fold like every other species had folded. They expected fear, submission, and gratitude for being allowed to survive. They were about to learn that humans were different. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out of the Grand Assembly. The news had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For the first time in thousands of years, someone had said no to the Galactic Council. Admiral Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the massive fleet he commanded. 200 warships stretched out in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed in the light of distant stars. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a city. This will be the easiest campaign in Council history, Vorthak said to his second-in-command. The humans picked one small colony to defend. New Busan has no strategic value, no rare resources, no important trade routes. They chose to make their stand on a worthless farming world. Perhaps that is why they chose it, his aide suggested. Less to lose when they inevitably surrender. Vorthak laughed. They will surrender the moment they see our fleet. No species has ever continued fighting after seeing the full might of the Council military. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Busan system. Vorthak expected to see a small farming colony with perhaps a few defensive platforms. What he saw instead made him pause. The planet was covered in a network of glowing energy shields. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons. Space stations had been built at key points throughout the system. Even the moons had been turned into fortress worlds. How is this possible? Vorthak's aide whispered. It does not matter, the Admiral said. They are still just humans. Attack. The Council fleet moved forward in their traditional battle formation. They had used the same tactics for centuries. Overwhelming firepower applied to break enemy defenses. then demands for surrender backed by the threat of total destruction. On the surface of New Busan, Governor Taemin watched the approaching fleet on his command center's main screen. Around him, defense coordinators worked at glowing consoles. The most important was So-young, a former military engineer who had spent the last 3 months turning their peaceful farming world into a death trap. "They are using Formation 7, So-young reported. "Heavy cruisers in front, destroyers on the flanks, carriers in the rear. Standard Council intimidation tactics." "Have they tried to contact us?" Taemin asked. "Several times," So-young replied. "They keep broadcasting surrender demands. Should I respond?" "Not yet," Taemin said. "Let them get closer first." In orbit around New Busan, Gunho commanded the primary defense platform. He had been a construction worker before the crisis started. Now he controlled weapons that could crack mountains. His crew was made up of farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, and students. None of them had been professional soldiers 3 months. "Hugo, enemy fleet is entering weapons range," Gunho reported to the Surface Command Center. "Wait for my signal," So-young's voice came back through his headset. The Council fleet opened fire first. Massive energy beams lanced out from their heavy cruisers. The beams struck the orbital platforms and planetary shields. The entire defense network lit up like a Christmas tree as energy barriers absorbed and redirected the incoming attacks. Vorthak frowned as his weapons fire splashed harmlessly against the human defenses. "Increase power to weapons. Focus all. Fire on the largest orbital platform." The concentrated fire from 50 warships hammered against Gunho's platform. The shields held for almost a minute before starting to flicker. "Platform 7 shields at 30%, Gunho reported. "I do not think we can take much more of this." "You do not have to," So-young said. "All platforms, execute Plan Tiger." Instead of continuing to absorb the Council attacks, the human defense platforms suddenly went dark. Their shields shut down. Their weapons stopped firing. To Admiral Vorthak, it looked like the platforms had been destroyed or had surrendered. "Excellent," Vorthak announced. "Move the fleet to bombardment positions. We will show these humans what happens when they defy the Council." The Council ships moved closer to the planet, spreading out to cover more area for the bombardment. They followed standard procedures that had worked for thousands of years against hundreds of different species. "Now," So-young said quietly, the human defense platforms came back online all at once. But instead of the scattered defensive fire the Council expected, every weapon focused on specific targets. Gunho's platform, which had seemed crippled, suddenly unleashed a concentrated barrage that tore through the shields of the Council flagship. The humans had studied Council tactics for months. They knew exactly how Council fleets would position themselves for bombardment. Every defense platform had been pre-targeted on specific locations where Council ships would be. "Impossible," Vorthak shouted as explosions rocked his ship. "They cannot have this level of precision." What Vorthak did not understand was that the humans had turned the entire system into a single coordinated weapon. Every platform, every space station, every orbital mine had been networked together. When they fired as one perfectly synchronized unit. The Council fleet tried to retreat to long range, but the humans had prepared for that too. Hidden platforms that had stayed dark during the first exchange suddenly activated. They had been disguised as asteroids, communication satellites, and abandoned mining equipment. From the planet's surface, fighter squadrons launched to join the battle. The fighters were piloted by volunteers like Minji and Hyuk, ordinary people who had learned to fly military spacecraft in just 3 months of training. "This is Minji to all fighter squadrons," she broadcast. "Remember your training. Hit the command bridges first. Without their commanders, Council ships fight like lost children." The human fighters did not fight like any military force the Council had ever encountered. Instead of trying to match the Council ships in firepower, they used speed and precision. Single fighters would streak in at maximum velocity, fire a few precise shots at critical systems, then disappear before the Council could respond. Hyuk dove his fighter directly at a Council destroyer. The ship's defensive fire filled the space around him with deadly energy beams, but he kept coming. At the last possible second, he fired his entire missile load at the ship's bridge, then pulled up and away. Direct hit on the destroyer's command center, Hayuk reported. She's drifting dead in space. This was not how space combat was supposed to work. Ships were supposed to line up and exchange fire until one side gave up. Fighters were supposed to engage other fighters, not attack capital ships. The humans were breaking every rule of civilized warfare. Sir, Vorthak's aide said, we are taking heavy casualties. Should we call for reinforcements? Before Vorthak could answer, his ship shook under another precise attack. This time it was the main engines that took damage. We are the reinforcements, Vorthak shouted. This fleet is supposed to be more than enough to crush one human colony. So-young watched the battle from her command center. The Council fleet was powerful, but they fought like they expected their enemies to be afraid of them. They wasted energy on intimidation displays. They positioned their ships to look impressive rather than to be effective. Enemy fleet is beginning to retreat, one of her technicians reported. Let them go, Taman said. We have made our point. Should we pursue? Gunho asked from his orbital platform. No, So-young said. Let them return to the Council. Let them tell their masters what they learned here. Admiral Vorthak's flagship limped away from New Busan with a third of his fleet destroyed or crippled. The humans had not just defeated the Council attack, they had made it look easy. As his ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, Vorthak stared at the tactical reports in disbelief. The humans had not fought like any species the Council had ever conquered. They had not tried to match Council strength with strength. Instead, they had used intelligence, coordination, and ruthless efficiency. Most disturbing of all, they had shown no interest in surrender. Even when facing overwhelming odds, they had fought as if victory was the only option. Back on New Busan, Governor Taman addressed the planet's population through the communication network. Today we proved something important, he said. The Council is not invincible. Their ships can be destroyed. Their tactics can be defeated. Most importantly, their threats are empty if we have the courage to stand up to them. So-young looked at the damage reports. They had lost some platforms and taken casualties, but the defense network was still intact. This was just the beginning, she told Taman privately. They will come back with more ships next time. Then we will be ready for them, Taman replied. And next time, we will not let any of them escape to tell the tale. News of the Battle of New Busan spread across human space within hours. On every colony, in every settlement, humans celebrated their first victory against the Council. They had proven that the galaxy's bullies could be beaten. In Council space, the news had a very different effect. For the first time in thousands of years, a Council fleet had been defeated. Species that had served the Council for centuries began to whisper among themselves. If the humans could win, perhaps freedom was possible after all. The defeat at New Busan had shaken the Galactic Council to its core. In the weeks that followed, emergency meetings were held on every Council world. Supreme Commander Zethrax, the highest military leader in the galaxy, was called from his retirement to take personal command of the response. This cannot be allowed to continue, Zethrax announced to the assembled Council leaders. His species looked like living metal, with glowing red eyes and a voice like grinding steel. If humans can defeat our fleets, other species will think they can rebel too. We must crush them completely, or watch our empire crumble. Speaker Thek nodded his four-armed agreement. The humans have made themselves a threat to galactic order. They must be eliminated as an example to others. Zethrax spent the next month assembling the largest military force in Council history. Ships were pulled from patrol duties across the galaxy. Reserve fleets that had not seen action in centuries were reactivated. Allied species were ordered to contribute their best vessels to the campaign. The final armada contained over 3,000 warships. It was enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. Council propaganda broadcasts declared that humanity's brief rebellion was about to end. But while the Council gathered its forces, the humans had not been idle. On Earth, President Daiho met with his top advisors in a bunker deep beneath the EU capital city. The Council's new fleet will be here within a month, Defense Minister Jiwoo reported. Our intelligence suggests they plan to attack all human colonies simultaneously to prevent us from supporting each other. Science advisor Bora activated a holographic display that showed human space. Our defensive preparations are complete, on 12 worlds, but we cannot fight a defensive war against the entire Council military. We need to take the initiative. What do you recommend? Deho asked. Operation Silent Thunder, Jiwoo said. We hit them first, before they can coordinate. Their attack. Multiple strikes across Council space to disrupt their command structure and supply lines. The plan was ambitious beyond anything humans had ever attempted. Instead of waiting for the Council to attack, human forces would launch coordinated strikes against Council facilities throughout the galaxy. The goal was not to conquer Council territory, but to create so much chaos that their massive fleet would be too busy responding to emergencies to mount an effective offensive. Kyung and Nari, the intelligence operatives who had spent months infiltrating Council space, had identified the key targets. Command centers, supply depots, communication hubs, research facilities, everything the Council needed to coordinate their massive military operation. The risks are enormous, Bora warned. We will be committing every ship we have to this operation. If it fails, Earth will be defenseless. If we do nothing, Earth will be destroyed anyway, Deho replied. Give the authorization for Operation Null, Silent Thunder. The human strike forces launched simultaneously from 12 different colonies. Each team was led by experienced commanders like Woo Jin, Hyun, and Junho, who had trained specifically for deep space operations behind enemy lines. Woo Jin's team hit the Council's main communication hub in the Kalar system. The facility was protected by orbital defense platforms and a patrol fleet of 30 ships. The humans approached using captured Council transponders, making their ships appear to be routine supply vessels. Identity confirmed, the Council traffic controller said. Proceed to Docking Bay 7 for cargo transfer. Instead of docking, Woo Jin's ships opened fire at point-blank range. The communication hub's shields were designed to stop attacks from outside, not from ships already inside the defensive perimeter. Within minutes, the facility was destroyed, cutting off communications between Council fleets across an entire sector. Haeun's team targeted a major supply depot that provided ammunition and fuel to Council military forces. They used a different approach, landing teams on the depot's surface and infiltrating the facility as maintenance workers. Remember, we need to make it look like an accident, Haeun told her team as they planted explosive charges throughout the facility. The Council should think their own systems malfunctioned. When the explosives went off, they triggered a chain reaction that destroyed the depot's entire fuel storage system. To outside observers, it looked like a catastrophic industrial accident. The Council would spend weeks investigating before realizing they had been sabotaged. Junho's team had the most dangerous mission, capturing a Council research facility that was developing new weapons technology. The facility was heavily guarded and located deep in Council territory. This is a stealth mission, Junho reminded his team as their ship approached the research station. We get in, take what we need, and get out before anyone knows we were there. The infiltration went perfectly. Human commandos, trained in alien technology by former Council slaves, bypassed the station's security systems and accessed its central computers. They downloaded terabytes of data on Council weapons, ship designs, and military tactics before escaping undetected. Meanwhile, the main human fleet under Admiral Seojin was preparing for the largest battle in human history. Intelligence reports indicated that the Council's massive armada was gathering in the Kalos Nebula, a region of space where the dense gas clouds would hide their final preparations. They think the nebula will protect them, Seojin told his ship captains during their final briefing. They are wrong. We know exactly where they are, and we know how to use the nebula against them. Bora's scientists had spent months studying the unique properties of the Kalos Nebula. The gas clouds that filled the region interfered with most types of sensors, but humans had developed new detection methods that could penetrate the interference. The human fleet entered the nebula using a formation no Council tactician would expect. Instead of staying together for mutual protection, They spread out into small groups that could move independently through the gas clouds. "Contact," reported Nari, who was coordinating electronic warfare from the fleet's command ship. "Council fleet detected at coordinates 77 Mark IV, 3,000 ships arranged in standard defensive formation." "They still think this is a conventional battle," Seojun said. "Begin jamming their communications. I want every council ship isolated from its neighbors." The Battle of the Kalos Nebula began with a massive electronic warfare assault. Human ships broadcast jamming, signals that disrupted council communications, sensor networks, and fire control systems. Within minutes, the mighty council armada had been reduced to thousands of individual ships with no coordination between them. "All squadrons, execute Plan Whirlwind," Seojun ordered. The human fleet attacked from every direction at once. Small groups of ships would emerge from the gas clouds, strike at isolated council vessels, then disappear back into the nebula before reinforcements could arrive. Minji led a fighter squadron in a daring assault on the council's command ship. "This is Red Leader to all fighters. Follow me in. We hit the bridge and get out fast." The fighters streaked through the nebula's swirling gases, using the clouds as cover. When they emerged near the council flagship, they were already too close for the ship's defensive systems to track them effectively. "Direct hit on the command bridge," Minji reported as her missiles found their target. "The flagship is dead in space." Supreme Commander Zethrax watched in horror as his perfect battle plan fell apart. His ships could not coordinate their attacks. They could not even see their enemies until the humans were already shooting at them. "All ships, withdraw to Rally Point Alpha," he ordered. But his communications were being jammed. Most of his fleet never received the order. The slaughter continued for 6 hours. Council ships designed for overwhelming firepower in conventional battles were helpless against the human hit-and-run tactics. They could not bring their superior numbers to bear because they never knew where the next attack would come from. When the battle ended, 2/3 of the Council's mighty armada had been destroyed or disabled. The survivors limped away from the nebula in small groups, their formation shattered, and their morale broken. "Fleet status report," Seojun requested as his ships regrouped. "Minimal losses," his aide reported. "We lost 14 ships and took light damage on 30 others. Enemy losses are estimated at over 2,000 vessels." Back on Earth, President Daeho received the battle reports with a mixture of relief and concern. The immediate threat had been stopped, but he knew the war was far from over. "The Council will not give up after this defeat," Defense Minister Jiwoo warned. "They will try to rebuild their fleets and come at us again. Then we need to make sure they do not get the chance," Daeho replied. "It is time to carry the war to their territory." Across the galaxy, news of the Battle of Kalos Nebula spread faster than the Council could contain it. Species that had served the Council for thousands of years began to openly question their master's authority. On some worlds there were riots, on others revolution. The humans had not just won another battle, they had shattered the myth of Council invincibility. For the first time in galactic history, the Empire was beginning to crumble from within. In the ruins of the Council's communication hub, a single message was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. "The age of the Council is ending. The age of freedom is beginning." 6 months after the humans had walked out of the Grand Assembly, a desperate message arrived at Earth. The transmission was weak and filled with static, coming from a damaged Council ship barely holding together in space. "This is Speaker Thek of the Galactic Council," the message began. The proud alien leader's voice sounded tired and defeated. "We request immediate talks with human leadership. The Council is prepared to discuss terms for ending this conflict." President Daeho listened to the message in his office, surrounded by his advisors. Defense Minister Jiwoo shook her head in amazement. 6 months ago they were demanding our surrender. Now they are begging for peace talks. "The galaxy has changed," Science Advisor Bora observed. "Our intelligence reports show that 8 Council member species have declared independence. 3 more are in open rebellion. The Council's empire is falling apart." Daeho activated his communication console. "Send a reply to Speaker Thek. Tell him we are willing to meet. But this time, the talks will be held on our terms, in our territory. The meeting was arranged to take place on Luna, Earth's moon. The location was symbolic. 6 months earlier, humans had traveled to the Council's grand capital to be lectured like children. Now the Council would come to humanity's doorstep as supplicants seeking mercy. The human delegation was led by Ambassador Minho, with Inha and Yuna once again serving as his advisors. They waited in a simple conference room carved into the moon's surface. Through the transparent dome overhead, Earth hung in the star-filled sky like a blue marble. When the Council delegation arrived, the change was immediately obvious. Instead of the proud procession of 6 months ago, only 5 alien representatives shuffled into the room. Their clothing was torn and dirty. Their ships were damaged and barely spaceworthy. Speaker Thek looked like he had aged decades in 6 months. His forearms moved with tired, defeated gestures. Behind him came the remnants of the once mighty Council leadership. Ambassador Minho, Thek said as he sat down across the metal table, "We come seeking an end to this destructive conflict." Minho studied the alien leader's face. 6 months ago, you offered us slavery and called it mercy. What do you offer now? Anything, Thek said quietly. The Council is prepared to make any concessions necessary to stop this war. Any concessions? Inha asked. Including your unconditional surrender? Thek's forearm sagged. If necessary, yes. Yuna opened a folder filled with documents. Our intelligence reports show that your empire is collapsing. The Krill have declared independence and are helping other species rebel. The Torvak have seized 3 of your major shipyards. The Nethys have cut off your access to rare minerals. You are not seeking peace because you want it. You are seeking peace because you have no choice. It is true, Thek admitted. When your species proved that the Council could be defeated, it inspired others to try the same thing. Our authority is crumbling. Minho leaned forward. 6 months ago, we came to your Grand Assembly seeking partnership. You responded with threats and demands for tribute. Now you come to us seeking mercy. Why should we give you what you would not give us? Because, Thek said, you are not like us. You fight for freedom, not conquest. You liberate, not enslave. We offer our surrender because we believe you will be more merciful than we were. The room fell silent. The Council leaders waited for the human response, their fate hanging in the balance. Minho looked at his advisors, then back at Thek. We do not want your surrender. We never wanted to conquer anyone or rule over anyone. We wanted partnership and mutual respect. The offer still stands. Partnership? Thek looked confused. But you have won. You have the right to demand anything you want from us. Having the right to do something does not mean we should do it, Yuna said. We did not fight this war to become the new oppressors. We fought to end oppression. Inha pulled out a document and placed it on the table. These are our terms for peace. The Galactic Council as it existed will be dissolved. In its place, we propose a democratic assembly where every species has an equal voice. Thek picked up the document with shaking hands. As he read, his expression changed from confusion to amazement. These terms, they are generous beyond anything we expected. Read them carefully, Minho said. We are not demanding tribute or territory. We are not seeking revenge. We want to build something better than what existed before. The human proposals were revolutionary. Instead of the Council's authoritarian rule, they suggested a federation of free species. Trade would be based on mutual benefit, not forced tribute. Military forces would be used only for defense, not conquest. Most importantly, every species would have the right to govern itself without interference. There is one condition, Inha added. Any species that chooses to join the new federation must agree never to use force against another member. We have seen enough war. Thek looked up from the document. What about species that refuse to join? What about those who want to continue the old ways? They can make their own choices, Minho said. But they will find that most of the galaxy has moved beyond the old system. The age of empires built on fear and oppression is ending. Over the next several days, the negotiations continued. The humans worked with the remaining council species to establish the framework for what would become the Galactic Democratic Assembly. Species after species sent representatives to join the talks. Taemin and Soyoung arrived from New Busan, representing the human colonies that had borne the brunt of council attacks. Instead of demanding vengeance, they offered to help former council worlds establish their own defensive capabilities. "We know what it is like to face overwhelming odds," Taemin told the assembly. "No species should have to face that alone, ever, again." The Krill delegation was led by Ambassador Vexus, an elderly being whose species had served the council for 8,000 years. "We thought freedom was impossible," Vexus said. "Humans showed us that it was just difficult." Even former council military commanders like Grix attended the negotiations. The warrior had lost most of his fleet in the failed campaigns against humanity, but he came not seeking revenge, but understanding. "I spent centuries enforcing the council's will," Grix told the assembly. "I told myself it was necessary for galactic order. Humans showed me the difference between order and oppression." Bora presented plans for sharing human technology with all member species. Advanced medical techniques, improved agriculture, better communication systems. The goal was to raise the standard of living for everyone, not just the dominant species. "Knowledge. Shared is knowledge multiplied," Bora explained. "When everyone benefits, everyone is stronger." The negotiations were not always smooth. Some species wanted harsh punishment for former council leaders. Others feared human dominance in the new system. But gradually, solutions were found. "The goal is not perfect justice," President Deho said during one difficult session. "The goal is a better future. We cannot change what happened in the past, but we can choose what happens next." 1 year after the failed peace talks at the Grand Assembly, the first session of the Galactic Democratic Assembly convened on Luna. Representatives from 47 different species took their seats in a simple circular chamber built into the moon's surface. President Deho gave the opening address. "1 year ago, my species was told to submit or be destroyed. We chose a third option, to fight for the right to be free. Today we gather not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals working toward a common future." The transformation of the galaxy was already visible. Former council palaces had been converted into schools and hospitals. Military shipyards were producing exploration vessels instead of warships. Trade routes that had carried tribute for thousands of years now carried goods exchanged freely between partners. Ambassador Minho, now serving as the first Secretary General of the Galactic Democratic Assembly, looked out at the diverse gathering of species. "We have learned that peace is not the absence of conflict, it is the presence of justice. Today, we begin the work of building that justice together." In the weeks that followed, the Assembly tackled its first major challenges. Refugee species that had been displaced by council policies were resettled on new worlds. Former slave species received the technology and resources they needed to build independent societies. War criminals were tried by tribunals that included judges from multiple species. Yuna, now directing the Assembly's intelligence services, worked to prevent former council hardliners from rebuilding their power base. Several species attempted to form new alliances to challenge human influence, but they found little support. "The galaxy has moved beyond the old power games," she reported to Minho. "Most species are more interested in building their own prosperity than in conquering their neighbors." Not everything was perfect. Some former council species refused to join the new system and maintained their authoritarian governments. Pirates and raiders took advantage of the transition period to attack vulnerable worlds. Old ethnic and religious conflicts that had been suppressed under council rule flared up in some regions. But progress was being made. For the first time in galactic history, species were working together as equals rather than as masters and servants. Children of former enemy species played together in integrated schools. Scientists shared research that benefited everyone.